Everyone wants to be happy. It's one of the most universal human desires there is. Entire industries are built around it. Books, programs, retreats, supplements, apps, all promising some version of well-being. And yet for so many of us capable, intelligent women, particularly those of us over the age of 50, happiness feels frustratingly hard to sustain, never mind even obtain. And it's not because we don't want it or because we haven't tried, and it's not because we've done something wrong. The real problem is that most of us are chasing happiness without ever knowing what it actually is or what undermines it moment by moment and depletes it over time. And that misunderstanding carries a cost. And today in this video, we're going to name that cost. So most people, like we said, are operating with the wrong mental model of happiness. They've been taught implicitly or explicitly that happiness is a feeling that we should have more often, some exalted state that we should reach, a reward for getting life right, or something that we should be able to maintain once we figure it all out. So we monitor it, we check for it, we assess ourselves against it, and that's where the trouble starts. Because when happiness becomes something that we track or we think we can attain, it stops being something you experience. This is a problem of definition. So here's the idea that most people never hear. We think we have to go out and find happiness, but psychologically, we all have a natural baseline, a general range we tend to return to over time. And happiness isn't something that we acquire, it's what's left when we stop siphoning away our energy. Happiness doesn't disappear, it gets taxed. Sometimes it gets taxed by the world, sometimes it gets taxed by bad luck, but it's definitely not by personal flaws. There are predictable psychological forces that siphon our energy, our attention, and our presence over time. And I call this the happiness tax. While our baseline exists, the tax is what prevents us from ever reaching the top of our personal range. It's the difference between our potential happiness and our actual happiness. And once you see it, a lot of things stop feeling so mysterious. So the first and biggest tax is misunderstanding what happiness actually is. When happiness is treated as a mood to maintain, finish line to reach, a permanent state, a permanent emotional state, the mind stays in evaluation mode. We start thinking, am I happy enough? Why doesn't this feel better yet? Shouldn't I be more satisfied by now? That constant evaluation pulls attention out of the present and into judgment. And presence, not evaluation, is where happiness lives. So the very act of checking for happiness undermines it. And that's not ironic, it's psychological. Now, the next tax is subtle but powerful. It's constant self-monitoring. And it's more than just harsh self-criticism or negative self-talk, which we will explore because those are definitely taxes. But it is, in this case, what we're talking about here is internal surveillance. We're always measuring. We're measuring our emotional state. We're measuring our progress, how fulfilled we feel in our lives, whether we feel we're doing our lives right. And that background process consumes enormous amount of energy. It keeps our bodies and our brains in an activated state. And happiness doesn't thrive in a system that's always in overdrive, where we're always monitoring ourselves and our progress. Again, this is not a moral issue. It's not a personal flaw. It's a mechanical one. We all do it. The next tax is the future trade-off tax, right? This one hits particularly hard for those of us who have carried responsibility for a long time. It's not that happiness vanished. It was just postponed. It was deferred. And it was deferred in favor of stability, financial stability, emotional stability, family stability, responsibility, financial safety, being the reliable one, getting through demanding periods of our lives. where we're saying to ourselves, I'll deal with that later. I just have to push through. I just have to get through the day. I'll enjoy my life when things settle down. I'll be happy when everything else is handled. But for most of us over the age of 50, we treat happiness like it's a luxury that we can't afford yet until, later becomes now. And we realize we've lost time. Like, how many days do we I'm just going to push through this day. And then 5 years later, we look back and we're like, where did the 5 years go? What have I accomplished? So this pattern isn't a permanent loss of ability, it's a learned survival response. And it trains the brain to associate joy with irresponsibility and delay with virtue. And over time, we forget how to receive, not because joy isn't allowed, because it's been deprioritized. And that's a tax. The next tax is adaptation without recalibration, right? Life changes. Our bodies change, our rules change, our energy is changing, our priorities are changing, but the internal operating rules aren't automatically updating. So many of us are still running internal expectations designed for earlier careers, younger bodies, and survival heavy chapters. We're trying to navigate a new, more reflective season of life, a season I like to call a season of wisdom, using a hormonal and emotional map that was built for a different landscape. We keep applying outdated rules to a different season of life, and that mismatch creates friction. And friction drains happiness faster than failure ever could. So those are some of the taxes that drain happiness. We're going to be exploring a lot more. We'll talk about them in future videos. But now, this is a moment where things start to come together, right? If happiness has felt hard to sustain or even experience in the first place, it's not because, you lack discipline, insight, or gratitude. It's because, we were all taught the wrong definition. We've been self-monitoring instead of inhabiting. We learned to trade joy for future safety. And our internal rules never recalibrated. So the thing is, effort doesn't fix that. Trying harder doesn't fix that. This isn't a willpower issue. It's a systems issue inside our bodies and also our minds. It's that mind-body connection. And here's the truth that most mindset coaches miss. We can't think our way out of a system that is physically stuck. If our bodies, our nervous systems are trapped in one of these taxes, like surveillance mode, where we're always monitoring for threats, or we're measuring our progress, it's like trying to run high definition software on a computer that is constantly overheating. The internal fan is spinning too fast for the program to actually load. So to lower these happiness taxes, we don't just start with thoughts. We also start with our physiology. They are connected and need to be addressed at the same time. We have to signal to the body and the mind that it is finally safe to stop monitoring and start inhabiting. Until we settle, until our bodies feel calm, our minds start to feel calmer, happiness isn't just hard to find, it's almost inaccessible. So once you see the happiness taxes, a lot makes sense. Insight alone won't change how you feel. Pushing harder only makes us more tired. That's why happiness keeps slipping even when life looks good. Nothing here means that we're failing. It means that we're playing the wrong game with the wrong rules. And Wise Women Wellbeing exists because we feel that happiness isn't an accident. It is not a mindset. It's a system. But before we build the system, we have to understand what's undermining it and draining it. So for now, let this information start to reorganize how you think about your experiences. And that shift is actually a very powerful one. Just remember that happiness is about practicing well-being under real constraints. So in the next few videos, we're going to be talking a little bit more about additional happiness taxes, and I will see you there.